Can you hear me in the back? Fine. Sveiki visi. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Managing Project Performance session. My name is Laimonas, and today I will just talk to you about my recent findings about agile and traditional metrics. I know this session is going to be a little challenge for you and for myself as well, because the topic is quite tough one, and because it's already 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you are probably a bit tired. So I'm gonna have a lot of numbers in my presentation. I'm gonna have some formulas. Probably you will also, like during the presentation, make some calculations in your head from the numbers you see on a screen. So if you find formulas, numbers boring, you're free to go. I will not feel offended. But if you feel like very curious about this topic, I think in the end you will be happy. So just before we dive in, just short introduction about myself. Currently I'm holding the position of project manager with a computer sciences corporation. I'm also, well, basically we deliver here in Lithuania some infrastructure projects which are international ones. So as a corporation we provide some professional IT service to another corporations. I have some virtual teams across Europe, some guys from India as well. Probably most of you who have international projects have the same. But coming back here to Lithuania, we have this wonderful community called Agile Lietuva, Agile Lithuania. So whoever feel like being agile, please come to our nice community who organizes this nice event. Last year I was a member of organization committee about Agile Tour 2011. This year I'm very happy to be able to present my findings during the conference. 2 certificates are in my portfolio, which gave me some courage to talk about metrics, because like I said, this kind of topic is quite tough. And I say that there are 3 types of lies. So one type is white lies, when you lie for fun. Another one is the black lie. I don't know if in English there is the same translation, but for Lithuanians probably you got my point. Black lie, and there are statistics. So you can play around. So the third type is statistics or metrics. So you can play around with their numbers the way you like, and it's just because you find it interesting or you find it one or another way. The result will depend mostly on you. Okay, I think the idea of the presentation came just because I work in a corporate environment currently. But my basic background was, my previous experience was mostly related to the software development, and I came to CSC from the agile environment. So I'm working for the organization that has been committed to a traditional project management for over the 50 years. So you can feel how mature the project management culture is currently in CSC. And that just because of that, the earned value management EVM, serves as the basis for the management and project reporting in CSC. So I just came up with the idea. Also, I know that there are some people in CSC. Of course, it's a big company, so a lot of people already know about Agile and they speak about it. So I just came up with the idea, is it possible to map Agile metrics with the traditional? In other words, is it possible to run the project using Agile methodology and still report the project in accordance to the corporate CSC standards? Who is familiar with this acronym? Yeah, exactly. It's a waterfall. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying, actually it's our good old friend waterfall. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to understand my audience. So I'm just very interested how many project managers we have here. Fellow CSC colleagues, please put your hands down. Thanks. How many product owners we have? Okay, nice. I really expected after the certifications we have yesterday and day before yesterday, we will have more product owners. And Scrum Masters? Okay, not that much. Good. Well, this is something I expected, so therefore I build up the presentation in the following way. I will talk a little bit about role and types of metrics. This is going to be very quick and very basic introduction. I'm going to talk about traditional metrics overview. So this is probably where I really expected that we will have more agile people than traditional project managers. And the biggest part of the presentation will be the demonstration and interpretation of the metrics. So I'm gonna use the one iteration and 10 daily stand-up meetings to track the performance of the team and interpret the metrics. And I'm gonna sum up and just the findings I came up with. Just before I continue, I want to stress that this is my personal interpretation based on my experience, and however, my experience is not validated by any opinion leader from the global project management community, let's say this way. And you might disagree, and it's gonna be totally fine if you disagree with me in some of the parts, but I will really welcome you to come here next year and present your own findings. Great, so the ruthless world of metrics. When we talk about the metrics, we have to answer the question, why the hell we use them? And the answer to the question is as stupid as the question, because we have to. We have to use the metrics to make business decisions. We have to make to provide meaningful information about important things. Also, we have to consider to change what and how we currently do, as well as we have to recognize the result and to judge the result. And what about estimation? Of course, we have to estimate the future, because if we don't look at the future, we are just lost. All right. Let's look at the great variety of the metrics across both methodologies. And I'm not going to list you and just name all of them to you right now. We're going to use those metrics a little bit later in a practical example. But just for your information, that this is not the end of the list. So we have a lot of different names, a lot of different metrics, a lot of different, as I said, statistics is just the way you put the numbers. When we talk about types of metrics, we can talk about the metrics who measure the value, who measure the productivity, predictability, and quality. However, I will focus on productivity measurement here, or performance measurement. So we're gonna just skip the quality and the rest. As I guessed, we have many people from Agile, having a Agile background, and probably if I want to answer the question how we map Agile metrics to the traditional metrics, you have to understand a little bit, at least at a very high level, what the traditional metrics are. And this is probably the most interesting part for the Agile people. So when we talk about the traditional metrics, we have to talk about earned value measurement. This is something a lot of project managers struggle a lot, because, as I said, there can be interpretations, although we have a lot of theory, we have a lot of standards we can use, and so on and so forth. So when we talk about earned value, it creates an objective assessment of project status and likely outcome by measuring and reporting work accomplished. So the message here, I am measuring work accomplished. Also, this is about measuring the project performance, comparing budgets to actuals in the sense of scope, schedule, and resource. So the message here is clear that I am comparing what I planned, so the budget, to the actuals. And in the end, the message is like this. It's not about value as business value, because Agile is mostly about delivering some business value and something intangible. This is more tangible stuff. It's the value as actually done, or let's say it in the other nice word we can use, it's the earned. So therefore it's called the earned value. All right, we have three main measurements in traditional metrics. So we have to talk about planned value, which is basically the amount of work planned to be accomplished. It's the earned value, which is the value earned by the time the work is completed, and the actual cost I think actual cost is it's the most easy one, because we just measure the cost of the work performed. So when we have these three measurements in place, we can do amazing things as a project manager. We can calculate stuff like cost variance, which tells me how many hours my team is running behind or ahead the planned or budgeted hours. We can calculate the schedule variance, which is basically tells me how many hours we are running behind or ahead the schedule. We can calculate two most famous, or let's say most important performance indexes, which is cost performance index, which answers the question, are we spending more than we are creating? And the schedule performance index, SPI, which answers the question, are we creating the value at the speed we expected? So when we have these metrics, I hope for those who were already familiar with the metrics, you had a nice revise. For those who did not know about these metrics, I hope you get it. So let us dive into the demonstration. But just before I continue with the demonstration, I have some prerequisites for it. So everything including earned value will be measured at the very basic level. So we will not use money, we will not use any currency, our own currency. Our only currency for the demonstration will be the hours. And I'm gonna use Scrum methodology to demonstrate how the performance is tracked. So let us assume we have 4 developers or engineers, doesn't matter, 4 people working for us 6 hours a day each. It makes 24 hours capacity per day. So we assume that these guys can deliver something which is valuable 24 hours a day, and we have 10 days iteration. So the whole capacity for the iteration or sprint is 240 hours. So we can create a value for 240 hours, and let's see what happens. Let me ask you, who goes ahead using this simple approach to manage performance with Scrum? How many of you? Shy Lithuanians. Come on, tell me you just have the capacity, you have the hours, you have the burnt rate, and you have this one, the red is the ideal trend. Not that much, but glad you agreed with me that this is the most simple way to track the performance of the team. However, but have you any idea how many hours your people have actually spent to deliver what was planned? I mean, yeah, you can say, yeah, we plan to deliver something for 240 hours. We are on time. We really finished on time. We burned all our hours. We estimated, and yeah, that's fine. At the beginning, we were a bit late with burning, but in the end, we finished on time, and that's fine. Yeah, maybe you don't track the actual spending just because you don't care. That's fine. I mean, you don't probably pay people the hourly rate, or you don't have subcontractors, or you don't have the freelancers on your team. So, but if you do pay hourly rate to your resource, probably you will want to add some more metrics to track. So I'm gonna use a daily rate. Let's not distract you with the numbers. I'm gonna use the daily rate, the hours remaining, the hours burnt, which is the previous slide, and I'm gonna add additional metrics like actual work effort, total work effort, estimate at completion, and required burnt. Are you okay with these last 2 ones? If not, raise your hand and I will explain what's that. Okay, some people don't know, so I'm gonna be very quick. So estimate at completion shows me the hours I will gladly be using in the very end of my, the total amount of hours that will be used in the end of the project, by the time the project is completed. And the required burn shows the amount of hours I have to burn during the day in order to stay on the red line. So if my definition is not that clear to you, I think you will be seeing it yourself in the numbers, and that would be more clear for you when you see the graph. So let's assume we did the sprint planning. We know that our team is now capable to deliver, to burn 240 hours during one iteration. Let's now have a stand-up meeting after day one. So we have a sticky note on the Scrum board which tells that this is the task number 1, this is the hours we estimated to deliver this task. Next, we say, yeah, we burned 4 hours, so we still have 2 hours remaining for this task. What does that supposed to mean? That actual effort is actually 6 hours, so it means we had a person who worked the whole day long, as we had in the very beginning. He worked the whole day long, so he actually spent 6 hours. He delivered just 4, and still 2 are remaining. Is that clear? Good. So it was just one sticky note to understand the whole thing. Let's see, we have 3 sticky notes in progress, and so this one was the first I already showed you. Task number 2, 2 people were working on the task number 2. So they burned 6 hours out of 12, so 6 hours are remaining. And 2 people worked, so it's 12 hours in total work effort, the actual work effort. And task 3 was just 2 hours burned, 4 hours left, and 6 hours actual effort. So what we have here, we have that people, well, our team burned 12 hours in total, so it's 228 left. The actual effort is 6 plus 12 plus 6, it's 24. And estimated completion is just that you have to add this hours remaining and this. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. Which this is our graph, which shows the progress after the progress after the first day. Let's continue to the day 2, and we have here, we created some stuff which can be evaluated in 27 hours. So after first day and second day combined together, we deliver something for 27 hours in total. But we actually spent 48 hours in total as actual. So this gives us a little idea that we are a little bit under the budget, because all the guys, they worked again the whole day long, and they actually used 24 hours for the day 2. Let's see how it looks here. And in the very end, you will see the whole graph filled with the lines, so it will be much more clear. But just to follow the process, the day 2, team says, yeah, instead of 24 hours, which is the ideal burn per day, we deliver 19. Our actual effort is 26, so let's assume the team started to do the overtime because they really want to catch up with the schedule. They don't want to go back to, they don't want to be under the schedule. And required burn rate shows that this team, instead of 19, should have burned 45 hours just to stay on the red line in the graph. So let's see. To get back to this graph here, they should have burned 45 hours. And this is nice calculation. The required burn is a nice calculation because you can even predict what is the burnt rate needed in order to get back to the red line for the next day. So you can communicate this, that guys, we are in really deep, because next iteration, next day you have to burn 50 hours to get back to the ideal trend, to get back to the schedule. Oops. So I'm gonna skip. I'm not gonna go just step by step through the whole. I'm gonna just draw you the whole process here, and we're gonna analyze it. So let's talk a little bit now about what happened here. We see that the team was underperforming, burning not too many hours, and then we meet up again with the ideal trend and go down. So it means Yes, we deliver something on time and we're gonna be probably on time, that's totally fine. But this here shows the green, sorry, the yellow one, shows you the actual effort the team uses. So we can see that it's constant growing little by little, and here you can see the team starting doing overtime in order to catch up with the schedule. So we can see the team, even though the team did overtime, they really succeeded with the schedule, and we see that the result is here. But the actual cost is growing, so this is not good. So what happened here? In the day 8, we see that team really catch up with the schedule, so they started to use actual effort. They don't do anymore the overtime, so they are spending 24 hours. They're burning quite okay. But let's us take a look here. What's that? It's the estimated completion tells me 250 hours will be used in total. The actual hours used in total in the end of the project will be 255 instead of planned 240. So this gives us a good understanding about the depth we have calculated during the whole sprint. So let's continue and see the whole graph. So this is the final. So we have 10 days passed, the iteration has been finished. But what's here? It's a Zoro sign. No, it's not a Zoro sign. Actually, we can see, as already mentioned in the previous, in the very beginning of the demonstration, I asked how many people use just the red line and the blue one. Yes, so it's nice to have just these two lines, but also it's nice to have the yellow one, which shows you the actual effort. It's really nice to have the green one, which shows you the estimated complete. And if this green line goes up, you can actually see the bad trend, which tells you that, uh-oh, something's going not right way, and we're gonna use much more hours than we expected we're gonna use. So if we just take a little bit, oh, by the way, not to skip this one shows the required burn. So when we underperform, this line goes up, and we see that the guys really should burn more and more hours in order to get back to the schedule. So for example, here you can see that the team is already back to the schedule, so the actual burn rate which is needed goes down little by little. But can you tell me now something about the budget? If we take a closer look here, as we already said, we budgeted something for 240 hours. So in the end, if the project from the cost perspective would be perfect, so we would end up something right here with a 240 something hours. But it actually, we spent a little bit more than we expected. And if you look from the cost perspective, yeah, you did finish on time, that's fine. However, you used much more effort than you expected. So you started with 240, you ended up with 265. So what does that mean? You have 25 hours over the budget. Who's gonna pay that? And that's the rhetoric question to the project manager. And now, this is the key message actually of my session. How to map Agile with traditional. And this is my interpretation, I'm just telling you again. You can disagree, but it would be interesting to know why. So let's assume that the measurement we have in a traditional metrics, it's called plan value. We know that this is the value we plan to deliver at the completion. Its actual Agile explanation is team's capacity. So we plan to have something to be delivered for 240 hours, and this is our value. So we plan it during the sprint plan. The earned value is something we burn day by day. So in the end, earned value in the end of the project will be the total amount of cumulative amount of hours burnt during your project. The actual costs is just the same, so it's nothing to discuss. We track costs the same way in Agile projects, just the same way in the traditional ones. So let us run the same iteration right now with the same progress, using the same input, just with the traditional metrics. Oops, a bigger table, waterfall. Yeah. So what I did, I deleted some columns which are not interesting for traditional project management perspective, but I added planned value, which is the value we plan to deliver each day, right? So as we said, our ideal trend is to burn 24 hours or to earn 24 hours a day, and then we end up, after 10 days, we end up with 240. So we say that planned value is 24 plus 24 plus 24, blah, 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 and we end up with 240. The earned value is something which is actually earned during the sprint, and we're going to go ahead and see that in detail. And then in the end, we have these calculations from the formulas I presented to you earlier, but I'm not going to talk about it now. We're going to see it in action. So let's go back to the sticky note. What do we see? We see that we planned actually to have 6 hours for this task. So this is our planned value we want to deliver. But we actually just made 4 hours out of 6. So this is the earned value, and the estimate to complete is 2 hours. Everything looks fine to you? Actual work is just the same as we used to have. So if we play around these two slides, so you can see that it's just a word play, actually. And if we go to the graph, which shows the traditional way of measuring project performance, you can see that agile people somehow they tend to burn things and like burn things, and traditional project managers they tend to earn things. So this is the one nice finding I made, not a serious one, of course. But let's run this iteration. I'm not gonna go just little by little, day by day, because we already did that. But let's see what kind of measurements we have here. We have blue line, it's the earned value. The red line is the planned value, so it's our plan. Estimated complete is just the same, and the actual cost is just the same we used in the previous calculations. So let's see how it goes. Dong, dong, dong. You can see that. Okay, let's stop here, and let's take a closer look. You can see that in Agile graph we have blue line going over the red line, and we say, uh-oh, something's not good, right? In a traditional performance management, we say that if we create less value than we expected, than we planned, we're in trouble. And we say also if the actual cost is more than we create the value, than the value we are creating, we are also in trouble. So this is kind of nice indication you can have from the very beginning, and you can track and you can have a trend, and this is really trendy. In here you can see that the actual, the estimate at completion is also growing, so this is not a good trend. So let's finish this iteration. Here, yes, you actually passed the value. So now you are creating more value than you expected at that time, but your actual costs are still bigger than the value you earn. So we're like, from this graph I can assume, well not assume, I can state the fact that we are under the budget, even though we are over the schedule. On schedule. Let's finish this. And how much time I have? 10 minutes, okay. Half an hour would be great. I continue 4 hours. What we have here, we have burn down chart. And now I just excluded all the other measurements out of the graph, and I show you the earned value graph. Do you see the difference? Burning things, earning things. Choose a favorite. No, what I wanted to say that it's actually the numbers are the same, so it's just the way you put it in the graph. I mean, the way you calculate, the way you interpreted it. So let's take a look at a closer look at the table I showed at the very beginning. So now this table is already has input from the whole iteration. Oh, sorry, wrong button. Our remaining, so estimate to complete. We have 240 hours or hours remaining from the very beginning. The same 265 hours where we finished. But now I want you to focus on these metrics which are here. Cost variance, schedule variance, CPI, SPI. So we can see that from the first day, we have 12 hours of depth already. From both perspectives, from the cost perspective and from the schedule perspective. Second day, the same. Then when we start doing overtime, we see that our depth is growing, and each day we have, this is daily rate by the way, this is not cumulative. So we see that we are really under the budget every single day. And we can see amount of hours we are in depth. And here in the schedule performance, you can see that schedule variance is negative at the very beginning, but then in the sprint, which is I think number 7, not a sprint, sorry, iteration, day 7, you remember from the graph, and we can take a look back here at the day 7, we already are over the red, so it means we are okay with the schedule. That's why the schedule becomes positive here, and we end up with a variance which is equal to 0. So we say that this is perfect from the schedule perspective. But we have the depth of 25 hours, which is basically 240 the planned minus the 265. If we talk about CPI and SPI, you have to know one thing, which is basically stated in the bottom here, that if SPI is bigger than 1, the smaller the 1, if the index is lower than 1, we are behind the schedule. If it's more than 1, we are okay. With the cost performance is also the same. So if the cost performance index we calculate is less than 1, it means we are, over the budget. And if the cost performance index is more than 1, it means that we are below the budget. We are really doing great. So these are the calculations I made from the same iteration we analyzed right now. So this is the same demonstration, just a different way to put the metrics on the graph. So we understand that the red line shows you the schedule performance index, and as I said at the beginning, we really were under the schedule, and you can see one is here, so we are under 1. So the SPI is less than 1. We are performing really bad, but here in the day 7, we become already positive, and we can assume that, well, not assume that, state the fact that we already are doing great. But you can see that the whole iteration long, our costs were just all the time, they were bigger than we expected from the very beginning. So the same result. I mean, looking at this graph and SPI and CPI, I think it's also good for the agile people, because you can have a quick look here and understand how your project is doing. You don't have to analyze burner charts. Of course, it's simple too, but I'm just saying that another way to put the metrics. Goody. Now let's have a look at all the graphs in one place. And it's a Zoro sign, of course. It's not completed Zoro sign in the bottom. So here is the agile way. Here's the traditional way to put the metrics in the graph. And here's the key performance indexes used by traditional project management to see how we are doing and are we okay with the budget and the schedule. And actually, as I said, the numbers everywhere are just the same, so it's the same result, different way of viewing it. Yeah, big table, right? a lot of numbers, even though you don't see probably the numbers in the back. If you see, that's fine, very good. But what I want to say in this slide, you can tell me the hours you burned in using the Agile methodology and the actual effort, and I can tell you the rest. I can tell you all the performance metrics you can report to your traditional project managers. I can tell you all the metrics basic metrics we use for tracking Agile performance. And you can have it here in one aligned in one big table. So in the end, to sum up, it is possible to map actually now. It's possible to map. So again, to stress what I found, that traditional teams tend to earn things, Agile teams tend to burn things. Even though that I know it exists, the burned up chart, not only the burned down chart, but somehow the majority of people, they use the burned down charts. If we talk about planned value, we can just talk about team's capacity. If we talk about earned value, we can just talk about burned value, which is, in Agile probably. I made up this. This is not validated by anyone. I made it up. If we talk about actual cost, it's just the same as in traditional project management. And if we talk about estimate to complete, we talk about hours which are remaining to deliver what we committed to. And if we talk about estimate at completion, we just talk about actual cost plus remaining hours in Agile, and estimate to complete plus actual cost in traditional metrics. So I hope this was not too hard for you to understand. If you feel like discussing this in more detail with me, you can catch up me in the lobby, or we still have some time for questions here. But just before you go with the questions, I want to say that while doing this presentation and this small research, I came up with other ideas how we can interpret this topic a little bit differently. So not only to interpret everything from the basic level of hours, because we have such things like story points in Agile, and we can probably measure story points burned down, and then we talk about value, because usually Agile people, when they talk about value, they don't talk about hours, they talk about story points. So why don't we use the story points and have another metrics or another formulas? Another idea I came up with is, how do we report the whole project and not the iteration? Because the demonstration I did to you now is just one iteration, and we know that the project itself is made up out of a lot of iterations. So probably it would be very interesting to take a deeper look and dive even deeper here, dig deeper, and to have a bigger perspective from the whole project and not only from one iteration. And the last is, what about earned value management or measurement and business value management or measurement? I really thought about this part because this business value management is mostly related to the product owner's role, not the management of the team. So that's why I decided at this time to focus more on the team, on the performance, and do not talk about any business value and the quality and so on and so forth. So these are the thoughts to consider for the future. I think I will continue this interesting topic and dig deeper in my further presentations, maybe next year, maybe in the Agile Day. So thanks for listening, and you're welcome now to challenge me with your questions. We have 5 minutes. No advertisements, right? No. Okay, Marius, go ahead.
No, just an easy one. Obviously, you mapped different metrics, but is it right to assume that CPI and SPI is universal for both?
If you ask my opinion, yes. Mr. President?
Thank you. I have an agile question. As you said, agile guys measure the value. So what's the value in measuring, like in agile you said we measure two things, which basically is true, 2 columns, and then you have, what, 8 more in traditional project management. So what additional information, what additional value does it bring it for you as a project manager, seeing all the rest numbers which you cannot get and understand from the 2, if you track only 2?
Well, as I said, I did not made up these rules for the traditional management reporting. But as we have these rules in place, we have to keep, well, at least in the corporate environment, you cannot resist it. So if they say you have to report it, you have to report it. So I'm not defending the traditional way of measuring the project performance. I'm just saying that if people who are in charge think that these metrics, they are needed or are helpful, we still have to calculate it because we have tools to calculate it, so we don't have to calculate it manually. However, I understand the question that if you don't like some of the metrics on the screen, you can just skip them or eliminate them whenever you take a look at them. But if you report, you have to report everything.
But you didn't answer my question. My question was...
I'm like politic, you know.
Yeah. So my question was, does additional metrics bring any value to you as a project manager? Sorry.
Yes.
And if yes, then what?
Okay.
Thank you.
These are two that are very generic one. They don't bring you the amount of hours, for example, right? They just tell you the index, so if you're good or you're bad. And these two, they say exact amount of hours you are missing or you are doing better than you expected. This tells you in hours if you are doing good or bad according to the schedule. But I don't know. This is a good question, and I think it's quite philosophical one. But I say that expression of the hours of the result is different from both points of view, from the agile and traditional one.
If those findings are unique, are made by you, what about the idea to create a software that you can automatically transfer agile burden chart into your metrics?
Well, the software is here, it's Microsoft Excel.
Okay. But maybe some automatic that, for example, exchanges the values from Jira to some management graphics.
It's a business plan for you. No, actually, I found a lot, well, not a lot. I'm not the first one who presents stuff like this. I just say that I did the research and I did find some thoughts on by other people who think that it's much more valuable to track value using the story points instead of hours. So it's much more consistent, right? But even though they talk about story points in different sources, they use different formulas. So I just thought, okay, these guys have an idea, but they don't agree between each other what formulas they will use and how they will calculate the completed percentage and so on and so forth. So I just thought, why don't I go ahead with the hours instead of something different? So when we talk about the developing software to measure these things, I think firstly we have to have one agreement. Probably it's a really tough task to do, to have one common agreement across everyone, every party. But we have to have at least something we agree upon before we develop. But it's a good idea, of course, to develop it. However, as I said, you have to fill just this and this in order to get the rest in Excel sheet. Okay, I think we are running out of the time. Thank you for your attention. If you want to continue.
Thank you for your speech.
Ačiū.